Hey guys, I'm Eric and this is Music Theory Breakdown. In this video, we're going to talk about the major scale. If the musical alphabet is the most fundamental thing there is to know about music, then the major scale is the second most fundamental thing you gotta know. It's a pretty simple formula and it's the foundation of understanding the rest of music theory. This is part 2 in my Music 101 series, so if you haven't watched the first part, I suggest you do that. Like always, we're going to teach with an instrument in hand so you can actually hear these concepts that you're seeing on the screen and turn this music theory into actual music. I don't really know what else to say. Also, don't forget to check out the blog and download the PDF with all the graphs that you're going to see in this video and other videos. It's free and it's really helpful. If ultimately what you want to understand is the Nashville number system, then this is the video that's going to be the most important. So make sure you memorize this. So with all of that said, let's get started. Okay guys, so let's get started with the major scale. If by this point, hopefully you've already learned the musical alphabet, the major scale really is the next natural step in learning music. And how I like to look at it is that music is a language. It's like learning another language. And so if you've learned the musical alphabet, you kind of know the letters you have to work with and maybe some of the basic building blocks. But with the major scale, this is where you're going to start to speak, shortened sentences. You're going to start to speak a little bit of the language of music. So to me, this is a lot more fun to learn. So with that in mind, if you haven't already watched my previous video on the musical alphabet, I suggest you go do that right now. This video would be really hard to interpret if you don't know the musical alphabet, so you're going to want to watch that. If it's something you're already familiar with, you should watch it anyway. It's short and you'll pick up on my teaching style, and who knows, you might even learn some stuff that you had missed before if you've learned this previously. So with that said, let's get started, and we're going to define a couple terms first. We're going to talk about musical steps. There's two types of steps in music. There's whole and half steps. And a step, what that means is that's the distance between two notes, okay? So a whole step is this. A whole step, if we were to go from C to D, that is a whole step, okay? So the distance of a whole step is really just skipping over one note. And this goes in both directions, okay? So a whole step down from D is C, a whole step up from C is D. See what I'm saying? Okay, so this is true, of course, anywhere on the keyboard. If I were to start at E and move up a whole step, okay, we're going to end up at F sharp. So that's, again, a step is just the distance between two notes. So if that's a whole step, it would stand to reason then that a half step is half that distance. And so a half step, again, if we were starting at E, is just going to go up one note to F. And like I said before, this is true anywhere on the alphabet, anywhere in music. So in this case, if we were to start at G sharp and move up a half step, okay, we get to A. So should be pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand. And so the next thing we want to talk about then are scales, okay, musical scales. Now, what exactly is a scale? So a scale is a series of notes that you play one right after the other. And what they do is they create sort of a musical mood. They create different, sounds. Some are very happy and some are more serious and somber. Scales typically contain 7 different notes, 7 unique different notes, and they're all created with formulas made up of whole and half steps. Again, they're made up of these formulas of just, the distance from one note to the next, and we're going to talk more about this in detail. So the formula, the scale, rather, that we're talking about today is the major scale, and this is truly the mother of all scales because the rest of music, chords and other scales and just about anything else that you can study in music that has to do with harmony, basically stuff that isn't drums, it's all going to derive from learning this major scale. So that's why I said before, this is one of the most fundamental things you can learn. And so the formula is this, okay? It's pretty simple. Whole, half, whole, half. And how I like to remember this is you've got 2 whole steps and a half step, and then 3 whole steps and another half step. Now, there's probably a dozen ways to memorize this, as with anything, but the way I remembered it initially was how I said it to you a second ago, which is kind of like a rhythm. It's whole, half, whole, half, okay? And so again, this is just a formula of the distances from one note to the next, and this will probably make more sense once we actually apply this to our piano. Okay, so for the purpose of this video, we are going to abbreviate these. So the uppercase W is going to be our whole steps. The lowercase h are going to be our half steps. So what we need to do in order to actually make sense of this, to better understand this formula, is we're going to apply this to our piano. So we're going to start at C, and we're going to use this formula of whole and half steps, and we're going to walk it up the piano, and we're going to be playing a series of notes. And again, I just want to reemphasize these steps are just fixed distances between, from one note to the next. All right, so let's do this. So we start at C. We're going to move up a whole step to D, okay? We're going to move up another whole step to E. We're going to go a half step up to F. We're going to move up a whole step to G, a whole step to A whole step to B. And our final half step is going to take us back to C, where we started, okay? Just an octave higher. Now, these are the letters, these are the notes that we just landed on, and they should sound like this. Okay, and of course you can play this backwards as well. Okay, and something I want to point out right away is that we began at C and we ended at C. And this brings me to a very important term, very important topic here, which is this thing in music called the octave, which you may have heard before. Okay, so I said this in the previous video, that if you're playing any note, if you play a note and you go up 12, you're going to run into that same note again. It's just a higher version. Well, the distance between those two, in this case from C up to the next C, distance between these two is called an octave. Okay? And so this is true anywhere on the piano, like the other things I've showed you so far. So if we were to start at, say, F and move up 12 half steps, we would land at another F, and the distance between these two is an octave, okay? And so it's the same note, just a higher version. So here's our F. Gonna go up 12, there's another F. Okay, so you get the idea. So back to our C major scale that we just created with the formula. That second C is kind of redundant, so we're just going to remove it. So now what we have are 7 unique individual notes that make up our C major scale, with C being our root note. And again, we are calling this the C major scale, obviously, because we started at C. So a quick note to make about the C major scale. This one's very special. You may have noticed there's no sharps or flats. There were no accidentals in this scale, and this is actually the only scale, the only major scale that doesn't have any sharps or flats in it. Okay, so all the other ones do. So here's what we're going to do, and we're going to do the same thing we just did, but we're going to start on a different note so I can kind of illustrate the major scale. And this time we're going to run into some sharps and flats. Okay, so we're going to start at D, and we're going to go up a whole step to E, a whole step to F sharp, a half step to G, another whole step to A whole step to B. Remember these move, music's an infinite loop here, so we're going to take a whole step B, C, C sharp, okay? And then our final half step is going to take us back to D, where we started. Okay, so these are the notes that we just arrived at using the major scale formula starting at D. So D is our root note. We've got D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and C sharp. And that is going to sound like this. Again, backwards. Okay, should sound familiar, do, re, mi kind of thing, right? So what I want to point out, and you're probably picking up on this, is this major scale, we could start at any note and create a major scale using this formula. So if we were to start at, say, B flat, the notes that we would play using the formula would be B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, and A. Again, we've got a set of 7 unique notes, and that one's going to sound like this. Okay, so hopefully you're kind of catching this idea that the major scale has a certain sound to it, and you can play this thing anywhere. Here's our C major, here's our D major again. Here's our B flat major. Here's the G major. Okay, so I'm using that formula, I'm just starting at different notes, I'm going to achieve a very similar sound. Okay, so with that said, the most important thing to remember here is the formula. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So I think this part is probably easier even than the musical alphabet. So there's not a whole lot to this. But if you can get a strong hold on this, you can work out the whole rest of everything to do with music theory, no problem. So with that in mind, I actually have this graph and some others that from my other videos, the piano and some other helpful things in this thing I'm calling the Nashville Numbers Cheat Sheet. It is a free download. I have both a PDF and a JPEG version, and there'll be a link below in the description, and I'll try and put one in, here on the screen as well. And it's just a link to my blog. I've got a post where you can download this thing, and these are printable. I made them 8.5 by 11, so you can print this out and you can memorize the scale and play along with all the charts and stuff that you see on there. So that is a free resource to you. Now that you have watched these two videos, these are kind of the most foundational things. You're probably ready to check out my series on the Nashville number system. Nashville number system is probably one of the main things that's going to take you from, music is kind of this mysterious thing to, oh my gosh, I actually know the system that music works within. It's not that music theory is about a bunch of rules. It's really just that music is, in fact, a logical system. And if you know that system, you're not confused by it. You have more control. It's a painter who understands how to mix his paints a little bit better. Okay, it's going to make you a better artist. So with that in mind, I invite you to go ahead and check out that series. If it's not posted just yet as you're watching this video, it will be very shortly. And don't forget to like, subscribe, leave any comments if you think something could have been clearer. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.